Class, today we're going to learn about eclipses. You've already looked at some stuff about that. I want to make sure that you get all the concepts. I'm going to talk kind of fast, move kind of fast. If I go too fast, remember, you can always pause, back up, and rewatch parts of this so that you make sure that you get everything. You're going to be taking notes on this. This is your note sheet. Make sure you're filling out these two parts and you're doing these diagrams on the bottom as you go through this material. All righty? Here we go. What's an eclipse? An eclipse is when an object in space is blocked from view by another object passing between that object and the observer. Starting with a lunar eclipse, when we use the word lunar, that means we're talking about the moon. And so what's happening in this case is that light from the sun that would normally shine on the moon, it's getting blocked by the Earth being in the way. So the Earth is in between the moon and the sun. This is an animation. It shows you what a lunar eclipse looks like, of course, heavily sped up. So you can see that light being blocked and that light being revealed as the object is no longer in between them. So this is the shadow of the Earth falling on the moon, blocking out the sun's light. And that's how we get an eclipse, a lunar eclipse. Here's a diagram for you. You can see that in this diagram, this is the objects that are involved in creating a lunar eclipse. Make sure that you put that on the diagram on your worksheet right now. Lunar eclipses, the totality, which means the entire time that it's in the shadow of the Earth, averages between 1 to 2 hours, depending on the eclipse and the location where you're viewing it from. The next one we'll be able to see in North America here is on May 26th, 2021, so that's in the spring here. A lunar eclipse often can have a red color to it, even when the light is blocked by the Earth, and that's because the Earth is round, and some of that light from the sun goes through the atmosphere on the sides and then is bent and hits the moon, and it's only that wavelength of red light that passes through there. We know that a lunar eclipse has to happen when there's a full moon, because that means that the moon is on the back side of the sun, but it doesn't happen all the time, and the reason why is that the moon and the Earth don't orbit on the same planes. It'd be like putting a floating beach ball in the water and then having another beach ball that sometimes was above the water and sometimes was below the water, so the shadows don't match up. Our other type of eclipse is a solar eclipse. This, of course, would imply the sun in this situation. So we can't see it from the Earth. Some of you might have watched the solar eclipse that happened a couple of years ago. And this is when the Earth moves into the moon shadow. So you can see this diagram here. Again, put it on the bottom of your worksheet so that you get that diagram on there with the objects in the correct places. The totality of this doesn't last any longer than 7.5 minutes. I'm going to talk about why that is, why it's so much shorter than a lunar eclipse. The next one is in April of 2024. And the moon itself is 400 times smaller than the sun, but because the sun is 400 times farther away, the moon is at the perfect distance to be able to actually block out the sun, even though it's so much smaller. It doesn't block out the outermost layer of the sun. This upper atmosphere is called the corona. We can view it during eclipses, and we can view it during using special devices called a coronagraph that allows astronomers to study that upper atmosphere of the sun. The reason why we don't see solar eclipses all the time and why they don't last very long is that the moon is a tiny object, so it doesn't cast a very big shadow. And you can see in this animation, it doesn't hit every part of the Earth. And it moves pretty quick because the Earth is spinning and the moon is moving and the Earth is moving. And so that small shadow doesn't spend a lot of time in one area. So that's why solar eclipses don't happen very often. And it's why not everybody gets to see them. Please make sure that you get all these notes down on your note sheet.